Hey guys, Steven here with ProTech. Today is the long-awaited for day where we dig through the Sig P320 and determine is it now safe to carry following the modifications that they made in days past. So, let's dig right in. We've got a P320 X5 here that was loaned to me by a friend, Alex. Thank you very much for loaning this to me for a moment to do this review. It appears to have the modification done from the factory. And then we've got a Sig P320 here, full size, that also appears to have the modification done from the factory. I tried to get one of the early models that did not have the modification done to it, but I couldn't find one. So, and Sig apparently fixed the issue, and as far as I understand, the issue was that when the gun would be dropped directly on its back from an undetermined height, I don't know what that height is. If I had one of the old ones, I would test that with a primed shell casing with no propellant or projectile in it, and I would drop it from progressively higher and higher heights and see when I could get it to go off, or if I could get it to go off. So I have not personally determined that. Others may have, but I have not. But I understand the issue was if it were dropped at a certain height with closed chamber and with a loaded closed chamber, the impact would cause the inertia or momentum or angular momentum of the mass of the trigger to rotate and essentially discharge the firearm as if a person were pulling the trigger from the sheer weight of the trigger alone. That weight would essentially disengage the drop safety, which normally gets disengaged on most striker-fired pistols when the trigger is pulled. It would disengage the drop safety because the gun thinks, hey, my trigger's getting pulled. So it's designed to fire when the trigger is pulled. And again, I haven't verified that that's what the old models did. I do recall an article that has been sent to us a few times regarding an instance where the P320 went off inside of someone's holster while sitting in a vehicle or sitting in a chair. I forget, it's been a minute. I highly doubt that happened. I have personally gone to a few fire calls as a volunteer firefighter, for example, to individuals' homes who have shot themselves accidentally cleaning their gun. And Crunchy, Fendi, no. Fighting in the video. No dog bones later on. Go, kennel. Anyways, and by and large, folks who do that, who have that negligent discharge, were probably doing something negligent. As an engineer with modern day gun designs, just have a really hard time believing that the gun went off all on its own. But again, I wasn't there, and there may be that 99.9999999 whatever % chance that it's not going to happen, but there's that 0.020 zeros later 1% chance that it can. Just like there's a possibility that a pot of gold may fall out of the sky and land in the driveway because it fell out of an airplane. So again, I wasn't there, can't prove for a fact that it didn't happen or that it did, but my gut feeling says that there may have been some foul play involved in cases like that. And other gun companies have been accused of similar things over the years. So those points addressed. Let's see, we own this gun. I've shot it a few times. Let's take the X5 out really quick to the range and put some rounds on some steel, and we'll be right back. Okay guys, here we are down in our steel bay number 2. It's got a bunch of pistol targets and a plate rack with bowling pins on it, and some of our old cowboy action targets, and some silhouettes. And it's just a fun little bay to shoot in that we offer down in the South Valley of our shooting range. Premium membership gets access to this area of the range. Alright, so now we're going to take this P320 X5 and shoot some of these plates with it. I've got one of the 21 round magazines, and let's have some fun. Not too bad. Had a little trouble on those bowling pins. I think the elevation and windage might be a little bit out of adjustment on your gun, Alex, but I'll fix it for you. It's hitting low and to the right about 3 inches, but when I held high and left 3 inches, it was pretty much dead on. It took me a minute to adjust for that, but that's called Kentucky windage for any of you that are wondering what that adjustment on the fly is called. And you can actually see, if you look at the rear sight there, can you see it, David? It's drifted pretty drastically over to the right, so we might need to bring that to the left a little bit. Can you tell?
There we go.
Yep.
Zoom in.
There you go. But that's no biggie. The gun functioned well, and the Kentucky windage worked. And hopefully we got some good footage from this camera and from the drone. So now we're going to head up to the shop, and we're going to tear it apart and do a little review on its safety. See you in a bit, guys. Okay guys, so we're back in the shop. The X5 did pretty good. We had a little issue with the elevation and windage adjustment on the rear sight. This is the X5 is more purpose built for competition, and as you can see here, this sight is drifted quite a ways to the right, and the elevation is also pretty aggressively adjusted. So but whenever I held 3 inches up and 3 inches to the left, it seemed to work just fine. Don't mind the air compressor, it'll shut off here momentarily. But the gun functioned flawlessly. 21 round mag. Alex, thank you again for letting me borrow it and for this review. Okay, while the air compressor's running, I don't know if any of you have ever had these. My friend Chris gave me a package of these, and they're really pretty good. They're called a Stroop waffle. It's like a wafer with a layer of caramel and another wafer. And he said, fix yourself a cup of coffee and put it over the cup of coffee, and it'll soften it, and then eat it. So I've had most of the pack over the last month or so, and they've been quite enjoyable. It's called a Stroop waffle. Why not? They really are pretty good. Look at that caramel. Amazing. Then I'm finishing up my my Black Rifle coffee. I've only got about 7 bags of it left. Black Rifle coffee / Stroop waffle, it looks like. Then we're actually going to be, at some point in the future, we're going to come out with our own line of coffee from Big Game Brew. My buddy Logan owns that business, and we may eventually have a ProTech branded bag of coffee that folks can buy in the future, which is pretty cool. And I told him, I said, as long as it tastes as good as or better than the coffee we're currently using, I'm all for it. Alright, well, the air compressor is still going. So let's dig in. Okay. We'll tear each one down. This P320 here is pretty new. Alright. So, we've got both guns torn down, both slides, both recoil assemblies and barrels and grip modules with the chassis dropped into them. And at first glance, both striker assemblies from the outside look the same. The X5 has a couple of additional cuts in it, maybe to adjust the slide mass. And then it's also got an extra hole here for the optics plate. But the striker hooks and the drop safety, that's this little guy right here. Let me grab a punch. This is the drop safety. That is the piece that this piece right here, move over here to this close-up camera, this piece, when you press the trigger, it pushes this piece right here up, which pushes this piece up, which allows the striker, I'm going to put some forward pressure on it with my thumbnail. When that pushes, it allows the striker to go forward. So now I'm going to, there you go. So that's your drop safety. And that little piece there with its associated spring, according to other reports that I haven't verified myself, but the report has been given. Apparently that spring and this lever paired with the trigger return spring and the linkage and the mass of the trigger itself, when dropped, the trigger was able to, the inertia or momentum of the trigger, angular momentum of the trigger about its point of rotation, which is right there, was able to overcome the spring under that. And when that occurred, it cleared the way for this to be released forward, and the trigger was pulled far enough that the sear, which is that ledge right there, was able to rotate downward and release the striker forward, thus discharging the firearm upon being dropped. Which again, that's a much more believable possibility than it went off in my holster. Not calling that person a liar, but the probability of that happening is just very low, and I think we can all agree on that fact, that the probability of that happening is very low. So to overcome that issue, it looks like both firearms are the same. So instead of using Alex's dirty X5, it's not that dirty, it's only a little bit dirty. I'd probably shoot that gun for another year before cleaning it. We're going to use the brand new P320 that's only had a few magazines through it because I don't want to say lazy, but I just didn't clean that gun before this review and I just shot it. So this is the piece that Sig added onto the gun, and it let's see, what does it do? Looks like essentially a second drop safety. Let's pull that apart and see if we can get a closer look. Maybe. This will be a process for all of us. Let's go through this journey together, shall we? This is a 3D printed armorer's block that my buddy Andy gave to me a long time ago. Thank you, Andy. And, let's see here exactly how that comes out of there. Trying to knock this takedown lever pin out. There we go. So that we can pull the chassis out. General rule of thumb on taking guns apart is don't unless you absolutely have to, because oftentimes you'll do more damage than good. But I'll do it for you guys. Okay, there's the chassis. It really is pretty easy. Sig and other companies have aftermarket grip modules that you can swap out and put your fire control unit in. This is per the ATF viewed as the firearm. This fire control unit, there is the trigger and the sear and all the safeties and everything. This is just a piece of plastic in their eye. That's why it doesn't have any serial numbers on it, but this does. And per the regulation, it has to be visible. That's why that little window is there, so that when this is in there, you can see the serial number. Isn't that nice? Okay. So here is the fire control unit outside of its grip module. Okay, so we can see now that when the trigger is pulled, it pushes this lever right here upward. It is attached, it's pushed up by this trigger bar right here. That pushes up on this trigger pull stopping device. So essentially they've added both a drop safety and what appears to be an out of battery safety. So this channel here in the slide is what this piece rides in, right here. So that will set in there like this. Try not to get in trouble here. Okay, so there is our fire control unit in position. Okay. And try not to mess myself up too bad. Okay, so when the slide is in position, I can pull the trigger. but when it is out of position, the trigger is dead. That little bar right there, that little guy right there, let me get a fine or punch. This little bar right here is preventing. Did you notice how it went down when I just pressed the trigger? Because the slide was in battery. There it is in battery. Now when I press the trigger, see it goes down. Now when it's out of battery, it pushes it back up. It prevents the trigger bar from accessing or rotating the sear down and off, rotating the trigger sear down and off of the striker sear, which is right there. Now let's see if I can disassemble this. Figure out how to get this back off. Remember what I said earlier about disassembling your gun and doing stuff like this might have an issue. So I'm going to mess with the, actually, here we go. I know how to take this apart. Okay, we'll pull the striker assembly out. So if you do this at home, if you want to experiment with this, you'll have to remove the striker assembly. So we remove the rear plate and the striker assembly, and now this should slide off. I'll just go ahead and pull that out for good measure. And there's the extractor. And that bar I was telling you about is going down in its groove, I believe, and not wanting to come out. Right there. Okay. So it looks like we need to push right here to get that to come out. There we go. Okay, so I had to pull the trigger and push right there. Actually, no, I didn't have to pull the trigger. Just push that down because it was catching on that sharp edge right there. So, anyways, that is something that you probably won't ever have to do, but I did it for the purpose of simply showing you what this new piece does. So it appears to be an out of battery preventer, firing preventer, which is interesting. So we've still got the same drop safety, and it looks like on both of these guns, Sig has skeletonized the trigger. You can see here on the P320 full size, it actually has a weight reducing hole right there, and it is a thinner walled, memmed trigger. Metal injection molding. MEM is, if you've watched our P365 gun review videos, you'll hear me talk about MEM technology, and it has really come a long way, and gives firearms manufacturers the ability to manufacture components like these trigger bars for a few dollars versus a few tens of dollars if they had to machine all of that, which is very nice. Plus the grain structure is uniform, so when they heat treat them, they don't have nearly as many problems with warping and tempering and all the other things that have to be done with thin-walled, long components like that. And it used to be back in the day, like with Glock, for example, a trigger bar on a Glock that's a sheet metal part, because MIM technology didn't really exist back in the late 70s and early 80s the way it does now. So they had to manufacture those parts using sheet metal dies. And the sheet metal process is way more expensive from a manufacturing standpoint than a metal injection molding tool set. You know, a mold set is, like, to manufacture that out of sheet metal, for one, you couldn't, because the wall thickness varies. But if the wall thickness were the same, that would be a very expensive sheet metal part, and it wouldn't have the strength necessary. You can see there's some added strengthening ribs on it, and it's thicker in some areas and thinner in other areas, so the gun would have to change outer dimension to accommodate those thicker and thinner areas. MIM just makes the ability to design easier, and the ability to sell much more economically. Now, on these fire control units, I do not recommend taking these apart. Can it be done? Absolutely. Can you go take an armorer's course and they'll teach you how to change these torsion springs and the trigger bars and stuff? I'm sure. But for the average Joe in his gun shop, I wouldn't recommend taking this apart, because typically when stuff like this gets assembled, there's a lot of fixturing involved that hold pieces in the right places when they push the pins in, and there's some coil pins like that. Coil pins are meant to be single install units. They're not meant to be, you know, put it in and take it out a whole bunch of times. So I would imagine if you wanted to, say, change a trigger out on one of these, you'd need to get a little bit more education first before swapping a trigger out, just to be on the safe side. Looks like the trigger wouldn't be too terribly bad, but I'm not going to take this apart because, well, I don't believe I need to. I've seen what I need to see. Now, that being said, this new safety doesn't appear to do anything but prevent the sear from being released when the gun is out of battery, because that has to be up. That safety has to be up in this channel in order for the trigger sear, you see it rotating right there in the video, in order for that to work. If this is down, it disengages it. See? So hold this down. Now watch that trigger sear. See, it's disengaged, won't move. If it's up, there it moves again. So, that will prevent the gun from firing from out of battery. It won't prevent the trigger from being pulled when it's in battery. However, let's look at the geometry of the gun. If this gun gets dropped, and it's got that big beaver tail on it there, and it gets dropped on its back here, it's going to push the slide out of battery a little bit, like that, because it's going to hit, and the momentum is going to carry that slide back a little bit, and it's also going to want to pull the trigger. So, if I were a betting man, I would say that I would bet that trigger, or that Sig put that safety feature in there for that occurrence. When the slide is a little bit out of battery and there's less pressure on the trigger, return assembly, thus making the trigger easier to pull from that momentum, gun might go off. And I'm talking just a little bit out of battery. So let's test that. Let's put the gun back together. Okay, so extractor, yeah, beefy extractor, nice min part, big radius. That extractor is probably never going to have any issues. When I was at FN, the pistol team did a wonderful job on the extractor on the 509, and that thing is a beast. It was sad to see it not win the Army solicitation, but that's what competitions are about. You've got winners and losers. Okay. If any of you guys are watching this from FN, hope you're all doing well, and maybe we can have lunch again the next time I come down to visit. There we go. Okay. I just applied pressure on that while pushing that pin in and then popped the rear plate back on. Okay. Recoil groove. Okay. Now let's put this fire control unit back in there. Looks like I'm going to feed the back end in first. There's a little slot right in there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a little slot right in there that this piece right here goes into. So we'll kind of angle that back into that slot. Pull the trigger a little bit. Let's see. Well, maybe stick the trigger in first. There we go. Okay, so stick the trigger in first, and then kind of angle it down and back into that slot. It should just slide right in like butter. Okay, and then we need to stick the takedown bar back in there. You see it's got a little chamfer right there that they conveniently put on it, so we don't have to go in with a punch and move that bar right there out of the way. This chamfer will do it for us. So we'll line that up with that and push that in there, I think. Maybe. Okay. Rotate it a little bit and then push it. Maybe. Okay. And there we go. Okay. Gotta hold your mouth just right. Okay, there we go. First rule of gun safety. Assume all guns are loaded, right? Interesting, I had to stick the magazine in the gun in order to turn the trigger on. Looks like there's a little key in there that the magazine pushes up on when it's first inserted. Interesting, but it still will fire on an empty chamber. Okay, that's interesting. Less of a safety concern from, is it safe to carry? Okay. Alright, so now where were we? We were going to test that theory. Okay, so if I drop this gun and it goes, say, front Fendi, no, heel, kennel, go lay down, disregard, hibernate mode, kennel, go, kennel, good girls, they're such good guard dogs. Okay, so there we're at about 1/8 of an inch out of battery. Trigger's dead. Okay, let's back it off to about, Fendi, kennel, about 1/16 of an inch. Still won't fire. Okay, let's back it off to about 1/32 of an inch. Still won't fire. And let's back it off to, see, there's fully backed off. Let me squeeze it back about a little less than 50 thousandths of an inch. Still won't go off. Okay? Try to get close here so you can see. Now watch that right there. I'm going to release it. Okay, so that new safety, let's bring this back. I'm going to try to bring that back to where it is flush with the back of the plastic on the grip module. That's just barely out of battery. There, it'll go off. So, just the slightest amount of rearward movement is about all it will allow. As soon as the back of the slide goes past the back of that plastic grip module, oh, I think I might have moved it a little bit. Squeeze it really hard this time. No, that goes off. Hang on, let's repeat that test. Okay, there's a 1/16 of an inch. I might not have been pressing the trigger hard enough. I apologize. Okay, let's go back out to 1/8 of an inch. There's 1/8 of an inch. I can get it to go off. Now let's look at the barrel. I guess what's most important is when does the barrel unlock? The barrel doesn't unlock from the slide until it's about right there. And you don't want the gun going off there because then you could have bigger problems. The pressure would be too high before being uncorked and you could hurt yourself. The gun could blow up, other things could happen. It's called firing out of battery. So let's go back to where the barrel just begins to unlock. Right there. You can see the barrel go down. Now let's try to pull the trigger. I'm pulling it very hard now. Not going off. Okay, let's release it to where the barrel is fully into battery. There, it's fully into battery. It'll go off. Okay, so let's do it again. Watch the barrel. As soon as I see it move, I stop. Trigger's dead. Let's go a little further. There, it's fully unlocked. There, it's starting to separate from the slide. Okay. So, Sig designed that new safety feature to make the gun not fire when it begins to be out of battery. We'll take it back to where right before it starts to unlock. Right there, it's fully locked. There, it's just about to bite, and there it is. So maybe 50 thousandths of an inch before unlock begins is when that added anti-fire out of battery feature, or whatever they want to call it, turns on. AKA that little lever gets pushed down, thus disengaging the trigger sear's ability to release the striker sear. So that's the new added safety feature that Sig has put into this gun. In addition to, looks like, skeletonizing the trigger. And believe you me, knowing what I know from having worked at FN, FN's a big safety-oriented company. Moves very slow, moves almost at a snail's pace. Some days it felt like, but I have to give them credit. They left no stone unturned regarding safety to the best of their ability. Now, nobody's perfect, but they did a darn good job with it. And I would venture to say that when there was an issue with this gun, Sig really did their due diligence on fixing it, which is probably why we've had I think no complaints since this modification has been made and these lighter triggers have been installed. So it's got, essentially, it's got a drop safety and an out of battery safety now, which is pretty cool. And being that Glock's patent has supposedly ran out, and there are lots of companies copying their design. You can pull apart different systems. What's that one, Chad? It's that Shadow Systems?
There is a Shadow
Shadows, and then you've got one from
I've got the PSA Dagger,
Palmetto State.
Which is a phenomenal little pistol.
So there's a couple there, and then there's more than that. I think there's an SAR9 and maybe even some others that are copies of the Glock internal components, and a lot of them use the exact same internal components. You can pull the slide off and look at it and compare it to your Glock 19 that all of us have, you know, one or more of, and they've pirated the components or some of the components and maybe just changed the way the outside looks. So I would, if I were an advisor of any type, and I'm just a little guy who does a little bit of contracted engineering on the side and makes holsters. But if I were an advisor, I would recommend adding a trigger safety onto or into their line of pistols, at least as an option. If not, add it into everything, because it's just one more line of safety. But it does look like they have done their due diligence to make sure that this issue never happens again. So now, as a quick aside, how are we able to do this? How are we able to have this shop and do what we do? Well, we make holsters. They're called kybrids. Not hybrid with an H, kybrid with a K. And what I mean by that is, and you can see some of them here on the display line. What I mean by that is it is a full coverage Kydex holster. So you got Kydex on both sides of the gun. And it's molded in a way that it'll lay flat up against your body. And that is also mounted to a piece of grade A premium leather. So it gives you essentially a very comfortable, very safe, very robust holster design that you can wear all day, every day. And we do other things like we mold. This is a Glock 43X, by the way. We mold over the muzzle. And by doing that, but not all the way over the muzzle, just part of the way, by doing that, and you can see all the wear and tear. I've been wearing this exact holster for about 2 years now, and it's just now getting broke in. All of our stuff has a lifetime guarantee as well. But by doing that, it prolongs or greatly prolongs the life of your pants. What you may notice, those of you who are carrying IWB, is within a matter of months, definitely less than a matter of a year, if your muzzle is exposed or you've got a sharp edge of Kydex there, it'll wear a hole through your pants rather quickly. Well, I've been wearing these True Spec tactical pants that you see in some of our videos and in this one as well. I've got the same 7 or 8 pair that I've been wearing for years now, since before I left FN back in 2017. And I've yet to wear a hole through them, and it's attributed to that. Also, the grade of Kydex that we use is called Kydex 100. I can stand on this holster without the gun in it, pick it up, and there's no stress marks anywhere on it. It's very, very rigid. It's about 40-50% stronger than regular Kydex, depending on who makes it. We order all of ours from Kerbel Plastics here in the U.S. And very, very robust material. And then we mount it to a piece of grade A premium leather from Herman Oak over in Missouri. Herman Oak is regarded as one of the best leather processors in the country. They're very good at what they do. Thank you guys for what you do. And then our clips, we've got lots of different clip options, but 90+% of the time we use our standard metal clips. These are made in the USA by JRM Clips. Thank you guys for making a very quality product. They even say made in the USA on the back of them. I don't know if you can see that or not, but and then they're adjustable. You can move the clips up or down to change the ride height and the cant or carry angle of the gun. If you notice, the trigger guard is fully covered on both sides of the gun. We leave the magazine release exposed, but as you can see from this angle, you can't access the magazine release by pressing on the gun. I can't get it to release the magazine, which gives me two things. One, it protects the button because of the thickness of the leather and the fact that we cut the Kydex right up next to the magazine release. It also gives me the ability to holster my firearm to do a one-handed reload, which is something we may face as concealed carriers someday, because it's easy to get shot in the hand or the arm. If you're ever faced with a threat that is also armed with a firearm. So you may have to holster, pop your magazine out, stick a new magazine in, and charge your firearm off of the edge of your holster or your pant pocket or the sharp edge of something to chamber around. And then you'll also see that we cut the leather backer such that you can get a full grip all the way up into the beaver tail of the grip. Okay, and you can wrap all three of your fingers around unobstructed. Now I like to do what's called a thumb overdraw, where I pull the gun out of my pants, and as soon as it clears the holster, my thumb drops down right like that, and I complete then my thumb's forward grip. And then we also take the leather and we blend it in this top ½ inch or so. We actually shape it so that it gives you a nice outward radius for your side to push against. I can put this holster on and lay down on the concrete floor, and it's very comfortable. It's like laying on, it's as comfortable as a concrete floor can get. But it's like laying on a ledge with some padding on it. You can sit in your truck and drive all day long with one of these on. And we've got tow truck drivers that wear these and crawl underneath vehicles on the side of the highway and hook them up to them, hook their cables and chains up to them. The gun's all nasty and mangled, and the Kydex is taking a beating. But we've got some rigs that have been out there since before we moved up from South Carolina, and they're still out there rocking it, still covered under the lifetime guarantee. We've got some pretty cool success stories as well. We've been doing it for about 10 years. And then we also curve the Kydex after we form it to match the curvature of the body a little more. So you can see when you look at that holster mold, you can see that it's actually curved to match the curvature of the body, which makes it suck up to your body a little better, and it just all but disappears. And then to put it on, you always do a shake test, and if it's a little loose, you just tighten that retention adjustment screw right there to whatever retention you prefer. And we try to make them here in the shop such that even if you take that screw all the way out, the gun still won't fall out of it. But some people like more retention and some people like less retention. So we put that adjustment feature in there. But just clip it on right like that, tighten your belt up, and then voila, it's on. So that's the main way we keep the lights on here. We also do contracted engineering for an hourly rate. So most of the time, individuals or small companies who maybe need a little bit more engineering power for a particular project, or they want an outsider's perspective, so they'll ship their product to us, and I and our team here will review it and then give them feedback. Sometimes we'll do some testing here on the range. We've got a 60-acre shooting range. You can look at some of our other videos and see our shooting range in its full effect. And then we also teach. We do firearms training, lots of different cool firearms training workshops that we have to offer. We support law enforcement. We've got it's going on 10 or more. I haven't counted them agencies that use our facility to do their training and their qualifications. We just have a wonderful, wonderful little slice of paradise here, and our memberships are very affordable. We offer 3 different levels of membership. You can hear about those in our other videos. But yeah, guys, on the Sig P320, you know, I've been asked many times since doing the Sig P365 videos to do a review on this gun, and it's a very controversial topic. Is the P320 safe to carry? You know, is the new modification to the P320, does it fix the problem that some folks have had or supposedly had, the different types of problems that have been had? Do I doubt that the earlier design could be dropped on the top corner of the slide or on the back of the beaver tail, and the inertia or the angular momentum of the original trigger? Do I doubt that could not discharge a cartridge? Hard to say because I haven't been able to test it, but it does look like they've skeletonized the crap out of it and added that second safety feature, and maybe even they might have even adjusted some springs. But I do know or have great confidence in the modifications and in this platform in and of itself. And two, you know, looking at who won the modular handgun systems contract solicitation by the Army, it was Sig with their M17 and M18 line. I don't know what branches are using which, but it's mainly just an overall length. One is the compact and one is the full size. The 17 being the full size and the 18 being the compact. They also have a thumb safety. The military wanted that, and I believe most of them are optics ready, or at least some of them are. But inside, the controls are going to be the same, aside from that thumb safety there. But if it were not safe, I can tell you that Big Army would not have adopted it, because they do all of that testing themselves as well. And by the time that MHS modular handgun systems contract came about, and modular being you can change the grip module to fit all the different 5th and 95th and everywhere in between hand sizes, you know, and do different accessories and colors and what have you. It's more modular, hence the name. The military had a very rigorous test schedule for that contract, and I got to participate in some of that with the pistol guys at FN, even though I was on the rifle team. Got to come out and do some of the endurance testing with them and some other things, and they would do the same for us when we were doing big contracts like the CSAS contract when we developed the CSR-20. The pistol guys helped us with that. It was a nice teamwork environment, and I definitely miss some of those guys. This is a tried and now proven pistol design, and I have no reservations with it being fielded in any market: the commercial concealed carry market, the law enforcement market, or the military market. Good job, Sig, for fixing the issue. There may be some, you know, some opinions with, you know, the political side of things. Well, they should have owned it faster, or they should have done this or done that, and I don't get in on any of that. I haven't read those articles, don't have time for the poo slinging contest. But I do know that they have added a new feature into this pistol, and potentially some other ones. I don't have a pre-modification model here to compare to. If you have one and you want to ship it to us, email us, get on our website. There will be a link in the description. Go to the About Us page and email us, and you can ship us your gun, and I'll review it side by side with this one and ship it back to you. And you might even think about ordering a holster while you're at it. We've made several of the full-size IWB models for this, a few of the cup, and then several of the TAC Comp holster. The TAC Comp Hybrid and the TAC Comp Hybrid HD. That's the one with the level 2 retention hood on it outside the waistband. But yeah, it's a great duty pistol. I believe our local law enforcement agency just adopted it, Clay County Sheriff's Department. So, the guys, hit me up with any more questions in the comments. Don't ask me about, well, what do you think about what this channel said or what that channel said. I don't care about what other people have said about the gun. Ask me about the individual components, and you know, what does this particular component do? Send us an email with pictures, what have you. But I try to stay out of the politics side and look at just the facts. So give me facts and let's talk facts, and stay safe out there, guys. And we'll see you next time.